It's always better to know exactly where you're at with your sexual health and how to keep yourself in the clear. To help make that process a whole lot easier, GaySA Radio is here to lend a helping hand. And I have a special guest in the studio, and we're going to ask a few questions. Welcome to the Steam Room.
Today I have the honor to chat with Dr. Ezio about blood donation. Thank you so much for joining me, Dr. Ezio.
Pleasure.
Why should people donate blood?
Well, quite simply because there are people that need to be given blood under certain situations. So you're talking about blood loss normally from accidents, you're looking at blood loss from surgical procedures. There are a number of situations where we can save a life just by giving somebody some blood. So that blood must come from somewhere and it needs to be donated. That's the only way that we can get it.
So you say that we donate blood because it's a need.
It's a need to save lives.
Yeah. So what happens once this blood is donated?
Remember that blood is a body tissue, okay? And as such, you may not sell a body tissue. You can't sell a kidney, you can't sell an eye, okay? And the same thing with blood, which is why we donate the blood. The blood is then put into a bag, and from there it needs to be processed because there are a variety of products in the blood that can be used in medicine. So it's either used as whole blood as it is, or it's spun down into compacted cells and plasma, or any of the other bits, and then it is stored, okay? But before any of that happens, it is tested. So it needs to be tested because you need to make sure that the blood is good enough to transfuse to somebody else, okay? And there's a whole lot of testing that takes place there. So we don't want to transmit something to a patient who's already ill. So we test for HIV, we test for hepatitis B, we test for some of the rickettsial viruses, anything that can be transmitted through a blood donation, as well as some of the medications. So for instance, if somebody is on a blood thinner, the so-called blood thinners, so they're on warfarin, and they donate blood, you now go and give this blood to somebody who is bleeding to death anyway. You're going to make it worse for them because now it contains the warfarin that's going to stop the bleeding, that they're going to add to the bleeding. Okay? So we need to know what medication people are taking before we can accept their blood, and we need to know what their medical conditions are, because you don't want to make a thing worse by trying to make it better.
Absolutely. And I see that you're saying that it goes through several testers, the blood, before it is able to be donated. Does sexual orientation have anything to do with it?
Absolutely not. So what happened is, obviously, we don't want to transmit HIV to another person. So what happened in the early days of the HIV epidemic, it was gay people that got HIV, so much easier to say we exclude that population and then we're safe. Okay? A knee-jerk reaction, as illogical as it ever was. So anyone can donate. What I would strongly advise people not to do, and I know some people are doing it, is donate blood so that if they phone you and you're HIV positive, then you know. That's not a way to get tested for HIV. It's really the wrong way to do it, okay? Quite simply because what happens is your normal HIV test takes up to 3 months to show, right? So you could be transmitting it and it doesn't show on the blood test yet. The newer blood tests, the 4th generation ELISAs, have got a 14 to 21 day window, okay? But even then, within 14 to 21 days, if you think you've been exposed, it would still come up negative. These tests are expensive. The one that picks it up within 7 days is a qualitative viral load, which is $2,500 a pop. Okay? So what basically happens is, remember that you can't sell the blood, right? So when you receive a transfusion, there's a cost involved, but that's to cover all of these other costs involved. So what they do is they pool the blood. So they'll take, for instance, 10 units of blood and they pull it all together and they do one viral load on that. Okay? If that pops up positive, then they know which of the units they've tested, and they'll go back and test each one individually until they find that one that is positive, that they need to throw out. And then they call you and say, you've got a problem. You're causing a huge amount of costs, which are not necessary. Go and have your normal HIV test, right? But all of those tests need to be done. The hepatitis tests need to be done. All of those need to be done before we can say it's safe to use in somebody else. There's a lot of processing going on there.
I had no idea about that also.
Yeah, and of course all the storage after that. So,
Okay, and apart from other health risks that comes with not blood donation, but then what are some of the reasons someone cannot donate blood?
The basic principle is You cannot donate blood if that is going to be harmful to yourself or to the person who's receiving it, right? So the person who's receiving it, we've looked at that. We've already discussed it. Yeah. If it's harmful to you, when would that situation be? Well, if you're anemic, if you need blood yourself, if you're pregnant and you need the blood to feed the baby, you wouldn't go and donate blood. So basically, if it's harmful to you, you wouldn't want to do it, or if it's harmful to someone else.
Okay, now I've heard of friends that said that they cannot donate blood just because they've got tattoos. Is there any truth to that?
They've got what?
Tattoos.
Tattoos.
Skin ink.
Tattoos, yeah. Well, you see, a tattoo is a risk for HIV. Oh. So it's that whole needles and stuff, yeah. So remember that the blood transfusion services in this country are private. They're not government run. Oh. So it's private, and what government does is they control the quality of the work that they do. So there's processes that they have to go through. But they are entitled to say, you know what, you're an intravenous drug user. You've got tattoos, you've got whatever. You probably are a high-risk guy. We're not going to pull you in because you're just creating a lot of extra work for ourselves. Now, that may be based on fact. It may be based on perception of the person who's standing in front of you. Or statistics or any of those things, okay? But in scientific principle, a tattoo should not exclude you from donating blood. It is simply what potentially goes with the tattoo. So if you've got a normal tattoo that was done in a parlor somewhere, possibly okay. If you've got a tattoo that was done in prison, it's a different kettle of fish altogether, because under those conditions, you're much more likely to pass on HIV and hepatitis B. So it depends on the circumstance, but it's not a general thing that you can't give blood if you've got a tattoo.
All right. And what is a blood plasma?
So blood itself is cells, a variety of cells, in a solution, in a suspension. And the plasma is what that is. It's almost like you put these cells into a fluid. The fluid is the plasma. Okay. And in the plasma are the blood cells. And if you take a blood sample and you spin it down, then all the cells will go to the bottom and the plasma will be on top. There are two separate things, and we use them differently.
Okay, and what is the difference between donating blood and then donating a blood plasma?
You can't do just plasma. You can't. It can be done in specialized units, okay, where they actually split that and then put them back into you. But a normal blood donation, blood transfusion services can't do that. They will take the blood as it is and then split it into plasma and cells afterwards.
If you had to give somebody that would like to donate blood just for the goodness from their heart, would you encourage them to? What would you say to somebody thinking about donating blood?
Go for it. Go for it. There's always a shortage of blood. The blood transfusion services are forever running campaigns. The blood cannot be stored for very long. So if you have a look at, there's normally a campaign just before Easter to try and collect it. Whether it's used or not over Easter, by June, you can't use that blood anymore. It's got a shelf life. Okay, so it's not like you can build up stock and then keep it for the rest. So anyone who's HIV negative, doesn't have any problems, and wants to help someone else, I would certainly encourage them to go. And at the blood transfusion services, they will take them through that process. There's a questionnaire that you go through, there's a couple of tests that they need to do, blah, 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 until they say, fine, you are a blood donor, and we accept you in, and we're fine. And then they will pester you every 3 months, for a donation. Because we are hard up for blood donations.
Absolutely. And for those that are rejected, it's not normally because it's discrimination, but sometimes it's just a precaution, as you said.
Yeah, if you're anemic, if your iron level is low, you're giving away what you actually need to make yourself. So it's bad for you to do it. Okay? So always, is it safe for the person? Is it safe for the recipient? Those are the two conditions. There should be no other discriminating factors at all. No.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Ezio.
So there you have it. Remember, if you need more information, go check out the Steam Room page on gaysaradio.co.za. And if you want to chat with me, well, you can always send me an email. Send it to info@gaysaradio.co.za. This is the Steam Room with Max, and you're listening to GaySA Radio, where you are family.